let's go.
Most sellers wait for spring before listing. Why do you think that assumption exists, and what do most people get wrong about that?
Okay, so in the process of preparing your property for sale or thinking about hitting the market, yes, everybody thinks that spring market is the time. And what the problem is that people wait too long to start prepping. And while spring market can be a market of more activity, starting early is what's going to benefit most sellers in terms of an easier sale, a quicker sale, and a sale at a higher price, because they underestimate the amount of time that it takes to properly prep their property. That's 3 P's.
Wow.
Properly prep. Properly prep your property. It's like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickle popper. Okay. Anyways, when they don't prepare properly, the house doesn't present itself as well, and that ends up costing them money. That's why starting early makes a big difference.
What does inventory typically look like in January, February versus March and April? And why does that matter for a seller?
The low inventory for the year is going to be right around the new year, and it's going to peak at the highest inventory probably around June 1st on average. And it will be about twice as much inventory on that June 1st as we would see in January. So like for our typical market here, we'll be down in under 300 active listings at the beginning of the year, and we'll be pushing up to 600 through late spring, before summer.
How are buyers who are active early in the year, right now, different from buyers who start shopping in the spring?
Well, again, so buyers that are starting early are usually, there's 2 different types of buyers. There's the buyers that we get through December and January, and a lot of those, not a lot of them, but there's a good percentage of those buyers through December and January that are deal hunters. They're just specifically looking to find motivated sellers who have to sell, and they're trying to buy at a discount, okay? But if we move that group of buyers aside, the other buyers that come in, usually mid-January and beyond, they're very organized. They want to get their property and they want to be in place and moved in the spring. So they're starting early, they're organized, they know what they want, they can make decisions, they're usually in the driver's seat. So they're actually very good buyers in that early season.
When inventory is low, how does that change the level of attention a single listing receives?
When inventory numbers are lower, as a percentage, each property is getting more eyeballs because there's still a lot of buyers that are actively seeking out a home. So if you're in a sea of fewer homes, your home is going to get more attention. It's easier to stand out in a low inventory environment than it is when the inventory is high.
Can you explain how pricing power often improves before the spring inventory surge hits the market?
Pricing power, so from a seller's perspective, when we're shifting from a lower inventory market into that higher inventory as we get closer to summer, you're able to position your property and hold to a firmer price in a lower inventory market than you would as the inventory grows, because it has to do with competition and supply and demand. As that supply increases, there's going to be downward pressure on prices. So those who start early are typically able to set that price and hold to that price and achieve a closer sale price than they would otherwise be able to do by waiting later.
Based on what you see locally, have you noticed earlier listings selling faster or more decisively than spring listings? Are there some exceptions to the rule?
So the exceptions to this rule of starting early actually will apply to rural or acreage properties. And the reason for that is when you have land and it's the rainy season, now each year is going to make a bit of a difference. Also properties that have these gardens that really show well when it's warmer out. So you got green grass, leaves are out, flowers are in bloom. When we're really trying to pull at the buyer's emotion, then there can be a benefit to waiting for that season to open up and leveraging that property to its max for full appeal to the buyer.
If a homeowner is debating whether to list now or wait until spring, what's the one thing they should seriously consider before deciding?
So if you're thinking about putting your property on this spring and you're not sure exactly when, whether you start early or later, the best thing to do, have someone like myself come over, meet with you, look at your property and really give it an honest assessment for how ready it is to go on the market to leverage the maximum value. The other thing we're going to look at is what type of property it is. because it may be worth waiting a little bit longer if it has those features that are going to make it stand out amongst other properties once the weather changes. But otherwise, we're probably going to look at starting sooner rather than later while the inventory levels are lower rather than higher. Because if you're on the market when you have lower competition, that is typically going to net you out more money in your pocket.